What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to a brand new episode of A Growing Understanding with me, Simulation for the Nation. This is a series of mine where I try to find out about some of the most influential people within the farming simulator community. That can be anyone from mod creators, YouTubers, map creators, the works. And today is no exception. Today I'm delighted to be joined by a creator of many iconic mods across the, particularly across the UK farming simulator community. Mods spanning across a whole range of different equipment types, from a lot of silage or grassland based equipment through to livestock machines, and many more. And I no doubt know that many of you like me have them featuring in your save games. A true test for me really is quite often how many mods I subconsciously have in a specific save game without knowing about it. And when doing a little bit of research here, I found that I have many of my next guest mods lined up and used frequently as well. So it is my absolute pleasure today to welcome along Mr. CD Modelz into A Growing Understanding. CD, welcome. How are you doing today?
I'm doing really well. Thank you for asking, and thanks for the invitation to do the video.
You
really
are more than welcome. So, as I mentioned there, usually what we do here on A Growing Understanding, we'll pick a task. You know, we'll jump into a couple of machines and then we'll get going. As I was mentioning to you before we got started, I wanted to line up some of your creations and have a bit of a quick chat about them first. But then I saw just how many you had. And this field would be a big long line of mods. So what I've decided to do, I've got some of your most recent creations here, and I thought we'd have a little look through them to start with. Now it's up to you. Do we start with the Larrington or do we start with the New Holland? Where would you like to go?
Let's start with the New Holland. I think that's one of the more recent.
Perfect.
That works for me. Perfect.
Excellent stuff. So what I'm going to do as we go around here, I would like just to kind of ask a few little questions, get to know you a little bit, and kind of know a little bit more about your mindset as we look at these, really. So first of all, let's start with the very beginning. How did you come across Farming Simulator? When was it, and how did you first find it?
So I started with Farming Simulator back in 2009. I actually used to do a lot of scale model collecting and scale model making from way back, and it was actually through a forum. I think it was the Farm Toys forum at the time. It was a UK forum, and some of the guys in there posted up a link to a new farming simulation game. So it was a similar thing. We used to do conversions of scale models for like Britain's Toys to make them into something that you basically would have on your own farm or machines that you knew. So you would cut it up and add pieces, and that's where I really started with I guess the love for farming and stuff like that with scale models. And then on the forum, I remember seeing the link to a post. I remember checking it out, and I was really surprised because it felt at the time like the game was the graphics were really poor, I'd say. But it was really awful, but you could see the potential. You know, I used to play some computer games at the time as well, and you know, I remember it was like way back to the N64 days and even before that. So I always liked computer games, but I was getting to the point, I guess, where I was quite proficient with scale model building, so I used to do a lot of scratch builds. But the one thing that was always missing was the model was static for me. So you know, you put it on a shelf, it looked good, or you put it on a display, it looked good, but you were missing something.
But that's,
you know,
about
and
it.
I think
yeah.
That was about it. But the game then, farming simulation, like, wow, the possibilities at the time were, from me, was like, wow, you could really get interactive with, you know, it's the next level from, say, a scale model from what I was doing. So that's really where I started, I guess, in 09. I know the game, I think, came out in 08, but for me it was 2009 I started. And I didn't play it so much in 2009. I'd say FS11 and FS13 were probably my most played, and FS15 as well. But 11 and 13 were big for me for the game, for sure.
I think around that time as well that you had the explosion of kind of the mods and the influx of like your personalization. So like a lot of people, 13 was like at one stage the pinnacle of FS, really. It was.
I think so. I think FS13, there was so many mods then. I didn't even consider modding at that time because it was so different for me. I didn't really know that the communities existed. I was still heavily involved in scale model making, and that really took most of my time. So this was like it was something different, and definitely the modding was a huge thing. But it took me a while to defined, I guess, the mods and that modding community within the game. It was really FS15 for me before the modding. Really, I got full understanding of what you could, the potential you could do yourself within the game.
Oh, nice. Awesome. And then, so does that come from like a farming background? Were you always born and raised up into agriculture, or how? Well, if not, where was the appeal to the franchise?
I'm from the countryside, but I'm from a pretty heavy agricultural area in Ireland in the southeast, and my uncle was in farming, and my own family, like my parents, stuff, are not farmers, but I would have been involved in farming from a pretty young age with my uncle, and with a lot of the farms that were around locally. So that's kind of where I think it started, and then with the scale model making, that probably came from that as well. The interest came from, you know, what I grew up with. And it's funny that we look at the D1000, because that was there was a contractor when I was probably 9 that had 2 or 3 of these D1000 balers, so that's how long it goes back on this particular one. And that was really the reason I wanted to do one of these. So it's so I kind of fulfilled the dream for myself by creating this, because I always wanted to have one. I always wanted to have a scale model of one as well, but I never got there.
I mean, what I like about this is, like, you're right. You know, one of the best things in my mind about Farming Simulator on the whole is that you can rekindle those memories you had, you know, as a younger kid, and then, you know, just embrace what you used to have, be it if you came from a farming background, if you lived on a farm, or if you had some connection to a farm. You could always just relive those happy memories, and kind of, if the mods are there, find a way to replicate everything, you know, and right down to the nth degree of the color of the baler, for example. But it's perfect for doing that. And I love the fact that what I thought we were missing for a long time was like an old square baler, the big old square baler, and then this came along. It's like, well, that's one of the last missing pieces, really. I
think so. I really, I guess the challenge with the balers, they're tricky. There's a lot of bits in a baler to make it go, and it's difficult to figure out like what's a good one to use. And then for this one, it was quite hard to find the information to make it, like the pictures, and it took a long time of research to try and get the detail that I wanted, because I really wanted a lot of detail in this beta, because I'd wanted one for so long. And this particular model as well, the D1000, is what I wanted. And I think there's not really, it's hard to find them now. You know, they've been replaced by a lot of the modern balers. So that was a big challenge.
And certainly, what I found, you were in my live stream today on the day of recording this, and I had this making some hay. And like, I love the detail you got into on each of the knotters, and like, I was always described knotting, or like the knotters on a baler, as witchcraft, because like, if I would never be able to fix the thing, it would always break, and then, you know, you would just look at it and then hope that it would repair itself. But you've still been able to kind of capture the mechanical detail on there, and when you come around the sides here and look into it, all of the pulleys and the chains are on here and the belts, I think it's just perfect. And can't begin to quite imagine how much time, particularly on the older model like this, where, you know, if you Google a D1000, you're probably going to get a lot of images of rusty balers in the corner of sheds, and not many of the interior workings of them and dimensions, I bet.
Yeah, that was a big challenge. I actually went and bought a original service manual from somewhere online. I think I got it, but when I was 16, I actually got a chance. I worked in a New Holland dealership for like 2 summers when I was in school. I was 15, I was 16, 17 at the time, and I remember going out to there was a D1210 baler, which is same size bale as the standard Giants bale. But I remember, I think the guy at the time, it was like a Sunday, and he broke a knotter. And I remember being up looking at this knotter. I was like, how could this thing ever work? So it was crazy. He broke a casting, and I remember going out with the service technician. He was trying to fix it in the field, and it was like, it was interesting. So when I modeled the knotters on this, it definitely took a bit of time to get it. You know, you could go really detailed. I could go a lot more detail, but the challenge with that is that it gets out of control on poly counts and all that stuff, you know, for the game. Yeah. But you could go insane on detail, but you want a really good computer to drive it.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember thinking the first time I was having a look into a broken baler, it was like a conventional baler, but the knotting system and the knotting principle is still very much similar. And I remember thinking like, which evil, twisted genius mind created this, and why did they do it to me?
Yeah, I think even the challenge, one of the biggest challenges I had was trying to figure out where the pulleys and belts and stuff went. And it's really, I guess, where do you start with the model? And, you know, the way I like to model, I guess, from the ground up, how they would build it in a factory. And that was the challenge. Where do I start, and what do I model? And that was really, it was really trying to get pictures with the covers off. It was almost impossible to find pictures with the covers off, but I managed to find a video on YouTube where the guy was selling a baler and he had all the covers open, so you could see the inner workings. And then you could see there was a couple of pictures online where there was burnt out balers and stuff, where you could see how the chassis was actually constructed. So that was the biggest challenge, I think, trying to find that detail, because it just doesn't exist anymore. You know, it's easier probably on modern machines because you can find them and look at them, but these ones are getting rare.
Yeah, and you can, like, you know, if you go search Chrome Big Pack, you'll find the service guide for that in a heartbeat. It's,
and much better quality, and even on YouTube you see a lot of the digital simulations where all the covers are transparent, so it makes it easier to see how the actual baler works and where all the bits go. And that was interesting, but that was part of the challenge. You know, I really wanted. It took a long time to model this, many hours. And it took even, I'd say, as much time to research it. So it was, but I really enjoyed this project. It was
nice.
very, very interesting. And what I was trying to do was to animate everything, you know, as much as possible within the limits of, you know, what you can do in Farming Simulator. You know, and there's not that many limits, I'd say, when you go looking, because you can script something that you can't, that maybe is not standard in the game. But I was hoping to try and animate all the plunger and all that stuff, which was tricky. It was something totally new to me when I did it, so I hadn't done a baler before. So that was all that's the fun in learning how to mod, I guess.
Absolutely. Now what we'll do, we'll come into a bit more detail into like your journey of modding shortly. If we have a quick look over, I think what we're going to do, we've got some grass road up, so we're going to take the Larrington trailer and the forager out to do some, get a bit of silage in. Now this tanker, the Orabi tanker here, from the forums and the community watching, this was very highly anticipated, and I believe a large portion of that anticipation was brewed up by the Irish community in particular. These tankers have always held, like, the Abbey range has always held a very strong place in like the Irish community's heart for obvious reasons. But I was using this in the Let's Play today, as I was telling you earlier, and I really liked having a tanker that had like a pipe on, an overloader pipe to load other machines up there, and it's a really nice change to have that, but then also have the ability to strap on the dribble bar if you want and just cover all kind of areas. So where was the kind of the decision made to take that route with this mod?
Well, yeah, it was interesting. I guess it was really driven by the community. So a lot of people wanted an overloading script, and some people wanted an injector, and originally I wasn't going to do that, and I don't see them as frequently around where I'm from. That's the reason, I'd say, but I do see injectors, right? So the injector I really wanted to do. The challenge with the injector is getting one that's similar to what you see around, I guess, Irish farms, right, in particular, but UK farms and Irish are very similar. And being able to make it work with all the hoses bending and connecting, because they're actually dynamic, you know, the folding hoses, and that was a bit of a challenge. But also what I was trying to do was not have two GE files. I wanted to try and confine everything to one GE file. That's something I'm trying to do now. It's in some cases you just can't do it, right? But when you add the overloading boom and the overloading script, I was worried that it would interfere maybe with the injector, how that would work, and the attachers and all that stuff, and the hoses connecting. So that was a little bit of a challenge, but it was really just driven by the community and what the community wanted, and I think it was well worth it. Originally, when I had it finished, I hadn't done the boom. I just had the injector and the tanker, and then I seen a lot of people on the Facebook and stuff and I got a lot of messages on Facebook. Can you please add a boom and an overload script? A lot of messages. so that's I went back then, and I still have a little bit to do. I wanted to add one or two more features to the tanker, so I will do that in a future update. Just some additional to the boom really, and maybe an autofill arm as well. I'd like to do one of those and,
that'd
and a
be
rain.
cool. Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I don't see too many mods with rain guns, and a lot of people ask me for a rain gun. And the challenge I had with the rain gun was that I think it uses like a centrifugal pump on the front, and I was afraid it was going to cause crazy poly count. I mean, it's high poly count model already, but I would have had to essentially remodel the pump from scratch, and that was the only thing that stopped me, because it's I want to take another look at that and see how can I do it with a much lower poly count. And I'm planning to do a rain gun for this at some point when I figure out how to remodel the pump.
Oh, nice.
So yeah,
one thing I would, for anyone who hasn't used this tank yet, I really enjoyed the fill gauge on the front and seeing how that obviously reacts with when you're pumping and pumping in and also pumping out liquid. It's nice to see an accurate fill gauge on the front of a tanker, and it's like just small little things like that that really kind of make the mod more like more realistic, more immersive to the user, and I find that's really a nice little touch to have on there.
Yeah, I think that's it definitely is that for me as well. The fittings that I think I was saying to you earlier, I remodeled the fittings from scratch. I went out and actually got some measurements of a real one and modeled them, and then the real reason for that was that I wanted to use the hose script. I think it was actually Landy Kid. I remember him saying in a stream one day that he wanted to see a hose mod. If I was to create a tanker, it should use the hose mod, and I really wanted to do that. So that took a little bit of thinking as well, because when to get the directions and stuff right in GE so that the animations work correctly. So that was a bit but it wasn't too challenging to do that. It just making sure it was modeled to the right size so it would fit with the standard hose mod hose itself, the connector on the hose, and you could attach it up there and it wouldn't look like it's too big or too small. So yeah.
Oh, awesome. Well, I'm very impressed with that. I do like this a lot, actually. Someone as myself who is fantastic in Giants Editor at breaking things, and that's about the extent of it. I'm always in awe of people who make mods of any sort, but yeah, because it's always way beyond my technical ability. But yeah, very much do like the Abbey Tanker and the D1000 Beta. I've used those a lot of late, so very, very fond of those. Now, CD, would you like to choose your chariot? Would you like to be on the chopper, or would you like to kart today?
I'll take the I think I'll take the trailer.
Lovely stuff. All right then. So we are gonna head. We have got, if I bring up my HUD again, we've got fields 21, 22 and 23 to go at, so we need to just head across the road into the other yard, and then you can pick your poison from there. I'll let you go first, CD.
Okay.
Pull this little thing up here. So then obviously you were mentioning that you had a background in kind of starting off working with replica models, really. Now, way back when I was starting to do a little bit of research, did I read right that you started to make like models based off CAD? You were starting to use CAD software to develop your models, is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. That's I guess a lot of it was from the scale modeling. So when I started way back, I always wanted to make better and better scale models, and one of the things I was lucky enough to figure out was I originally started with AutoCAD, like it was two-dimensional CAD. It's way back in the day, and from there I went to 3D CAD, which is really, it's the only thing now you see, I guess, that people are doing design work, and there's a load of different programs you can use to do 3D CAD. But yeah, what I started was really using 3D CAD to make designs for scale model parts. And what I would do then was create some code actually to cut the parts out on a milling machine. So I was lucky enough to have access to a little CNC milling machine. I would create the design, create the code essentially from the design, cut the part out, and a lot of the parts I made were actually wheels for people that were doing scale models and like standard components. So the people that were doing scale model making at the time didn't really have access to like wheels and stuff like that to customize the vehicles.
Sure.
So that's really what I got into, and I had a website and all. I used to do a lot of that stuff, and that's where the CAD really, became proficient at CAD, and I've been slowly getting better. It's modeling for the likes of Farming Simulator is totally different than I guess what I would have been used to. You need to be much more aware of, the process that you need to go to get a model into GE essentially. So it's a lot different than, say, like an engineering type CAD than I would have been doing at the time.
Yeah, I suppose when you're doing kind of engineering CAD and making wheels or components on request, really, you don't have to think about how that will work with a script when you put it into game, and whether it'll, just crash everything and kick you out, or if it's actually going to work and work realistically as well, I bet.
Yeah, really what you're trying to do and that kind of thing is get the most amount of detail you can into a model, and you really have no limitations. It just is whatever you want to make, you can model, and it makes it a lot different than, say, modeling for Farming Simulator. In Farming Simulator, you have to be very aware of, what is this thing going to do when I bring it into a game, and how many polys does it have, for usability in the game. And there's limitations obviously with giants, and then also the texturing element. So that's one of the biggest changes or differences is I'm going to be texturing this model, and I need a model to be a certain way to make the textures work right, and I need the parts to be split up a certain way to animate it. So it's a totally different mindset, and it's taken quite a while to figure that out, I would have to say.
Oh, nice. Well, and what we were mentioning before we kind of came live here was the interesting journey you've gone on from like your first models through to now, and like how it's taken you some time, and you've learned obviously as you've gone, and looking back now at like CD Modelz original work, you're like, oh god, why did I do this like this, or how did I think that was acceptable when I could go back and change. I've learned so much now, I could change it and make it so much better. But I guess it's just one of those things that's always going to happen particularly with like the advancing ability and standards of Giants and Farming Simulator. Like any mods for FS19, I'm sure are going to be completely different again in how you'd approach it from 17. So it's going to be like a bit of an adaptation and a learning for that as well.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing the changes from FS19. I mean, really for me, I started really late in FS15, and I think one of the first mods I did, to be honest, was it was a Braun trailer, which is, at the time, Braun were kind of growing as a trailer manufacturer in Ireland, and they're pretty much everywhere now, I'd say, around the country, and you see a lot in England as well. And that's where I started. So the actual model that I created for that was the first one I did. I really had no clue about modding at the time. I was like, I really wanted to learn the process, and I was really envious of people that were able to create their own machines for their own maps. It's both of them are very tricky. And for me, the process started there. I built a model. It was pretty bad looking back at it now. I mean, people still use it a lot. From where I've gotten to now, as I said before, I look at what the model is in somewhat like what was I thinking, but if I went back, I mean, it was really just the first point, that and a high spec tanker were the starting points for me. And to be honest, I didn't actually when the Braun trailer came out, it was actually I didn't actually in-game that. So ARM team actually in-game that mod for me.
Okay.
And I got to know him. He's actually been a huge influence on me throughout the learning the modding process. I've learned so much from him.
Yeah.
Really nice guy to deal with, and he in-gamed the first one, and I really had no clue how to in-game it at all. No clue about scripting. Really no clue about texturing at the time, and really no clue about animation. So I started from zero essentially, and I hadn't done any mods for FS11 or 13 or 15 at the start until late 15. I managed to get one in game with his help. So yeah, that's kind of where I started.
Oh, nice.
And yeah, it was a real learning curve.
Oh,
It was really difficult. It was difficult. And
that kind of learning curve for myself usually involves me slamming my mouse against the wall, getting frustrated, and then switching it off.
It definitely got frustrating for a time, and I was like, well, maybe it's just not something, maybe you have to have a different level of experience or skill set or whatever to do this, and maybe the other modders out there just have a certain background in what they do at maybe a job or whatever. So yeah, that was a lot of frustration at the start, and but for what I wanted for 17 was really just to learn. So FS17, the only goal I had was to learn how to mod and to get to a level where the textures were good and the animations I could do without help.
Yeah.
And that was really the goal. It was just a learning. It was a learning for me. I think it's been really good, and I kind of came in I think a little bit of a lucky time, because I would say, looking at the likes of, say, Peter J and some of the other guys that have been in since the start, I would expect modding was much tougher back in the days of FS11 and 13, when there was no XMLs with all of the embedded stuff that we have now, standard in the game.
Yeah, I bet. Oh, very interesting. Well, what we're going to do here, CD, we're going to take just a very quick break, and then we shall come back in just a second for part 2. Alrighty everybody, welcome back to part 2 of A Growing Understanding with myself, Simulation Forward Nation, and I am joined by CD Modelz, who is currently being my trailer man, and there he is, he's just on his way back. So CD, we've kind of touched on it when we were looking at the mods at the beginning there, but would you mind kind of describing the process you'll go through from having the initial concept of the idea that you want to model, you want to design or make a mod of this, to how you end it, how it's completed? Would you mind giving us a bit of a summary of how that process is achieved?
Yeah, so I guess the first thing the big thing for me is I need to want to do the actual, or I should say, I really want to have the interest in the particular mod. So that some mods, it's maybe not as interesting for the mod creator to do them. I know I get so many requests, and some of them maybe it's not a machine that I know, or it's not a machine I have any interest in, and that can be a serious factor for me. If it's not something I'm interested in, I tend to try and stay away from it.
Right, okay.
But other than that, first thing I would do is research. So I spend a lot of time doing research on the actual real machine, getting pictures, getting real dimensions. I'm really fussy about the real dimensions of the machine and having the size right. It's something I spend a lot of time on. And then, once I've got all that, I download probably hundreds, if possible, as many images as I need to create the mod. So, say on the Lely silage harvester, that was a real challenge because there was very little images. It's a very new silage harvester.
Yeah, okay.
There was images on the older version, but the older version was a Rico Mengley machine, and I just didn't have the interest in it because I wanted to do a silage harvester that was relatively new, but also one that had a relatively wide pickup. And I really liked the look of the new Lely, but literally it was a handful of pictures. That was all that was available.
Oh, wow.
And very, very little information. So I reached out to Lely on that one through their online contact, and after a couple of weeks I got in contact with some guys in the Netherlands. One of them was, eventually I got to the marketing manager, and they sent me loads of images and dimensions and stuff. So that's where I started. Beyond that, then I start doing the 3D model, and once I have the overall dimensions, it's not super difficult to get the model roughed in. So start building from the ground up, say the chassis, and I try to think of it as how would the manufacturer build the model, and I start like that. So in the case of Lely, I started with the drawbar, and then I started with the main axle, I guess, or the axles and the main body, and then I build on that and keep going with the 3D model and keep checking the scale, because some parts you just don't have dimensions for. And say that if the pickup width is 2.2 meters, you can model it 2.2 meters wide. and that allows you to get things right. Then from that, get the model to a stage where it's completed, and then I start to do the textures. I really just do a very rough texturing. You have to unwrap the model and do all the UVs just so you can get it into GE.
Okay.
And you know, so it has some level of texturing in GE.
Yeah.
From there, I do an engage, or sorry, I bring it into GE and check the scale with, say, a tractor or something like that, to make sure an in-game, something that Giants have already released, to make sure everything looks good. And I do a rough in-game as well, very, very rough, just enough to get it into the game and have a look at it. So you can check to make sure you haven't done anything crazy, because if you have to make changes in the 3D model, it's not the time to be doing it after you've done all the textures.
No, I bet.
So once that's done, I go back, I create then the final UV maps, and that's a pretty, it can be a challenging process, UVing. It took me a long time to learn what I know now. I'm definitely not perfect at it. You know, in comparison to, say, someone like Giants, you know, they have proper 3D artists, but it's a challenging enough process to learn, and it takes quite a bit of time to do it right. So you have to spend the time doing the UV map right, or the textures are going to be probably at risk.
Yeah. Okay.
Then I spend, you know, a lot of time doing the textures, creating all the texture maps, and making sure the ambient occlusions are done correctly. The last thing I typically do is a specular map. So you don't need a specular map to get them all into game and do all the animations and stuff like that. So I usually leave the specular map till the very end.
Until everything else is right, yeah.
Yeah, because if you have to make changes, it's a time-consuming process to make a specular map. So I figured out, I learned that the hard way, and I leave it till the end now. And I literally, that's been one of the biggest challenges, I'd say. The UV mapping and the specular mapping has been the biggest challenges I've personally faced. Learning how to mod. So, you know, it takes a long time to learn that.
Okay.
That's pretty much the process. Then the animations, the XML, obviously I kind of brushed over it, but the XML is very important as well. You have to create the XML files, you know, to do all the in-gaming and do the animations. Again, the animations are something I do close to last, and the shop configurations are probably the very last thing I do in the XML. You know, but you have to think about the configurations in the shop when you model the 3D, so that you know, and you have to think about the animations when you model the 3D, so that you know what parts are going to move and how they're going to move, and what's the limitation of the game. Do I need a custom script here? So there's a lot to it.
Oh, absolutely. And so out of that whole process, is there a certain aspect of that which is the part that you enjoy the most, or is it just the whole thing start to end that keeps you kind of gripped? I mean, we were talking before we started here that, you know, it might be a random Saturday, you got no plans, and suddenly you've lost like 12 hours to modeling or something, and, you know, you'll do it all again on Sunday. Is there a specific part that keeps you glued to the computer, or is it just the whole thing?
For me, the 3D modeling is what I enjoy the most. It's that's definitely my favorite part. I've always enjoyed 3D modeling, and it's really nice when I try to, and I do it for a couple of reasons, but I usually take screenshots and stuff and renderings as I go through the process, so that I can look back, you know, down the road and see how it got there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I spend hours on 3D modeling. You know, the Lely was really, it was a tricky thing to do, because there's so many bits to it, and getting the dimension right.
Like, as we look at it now, just all of the bits around, like the flywheel house, for example, and then let alone the pickup reel and all of the different aspects of the pickup reel and the bars around the front there, I just wouldn't know where to begin.
Yeah, I remember when I did that, I wanted to have the flywheel even with the blades and the flywheel, and, you know, have the flywheel the right dimension. Lely gave you the dimensions of the flywheel online. So that's modeled to the actual real dimension of the flywheel, and yeah, I try to get as much detail to it as possible. But yeah, I love 3D modeling. It's the texturing side and the in-game, or the UV mapping side, not so much. They're almost a necessary evil, but
yeah,
the funny thing is you could spend a lot of time on the 3D model, have it look beautiful, and then you could really do a bad job texturing it, and the model will just it'll be a waste. And you know, it's so the texturing is super important, and that's something you have to learn to have a lot of patience on. You know, if you want to have a really good model, you need a really good texture, because that's what people see.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, interesting.
The challenge with modding is really interesting, and one of the best pieces, I guess the best parts is when you click buy in the shop when you have the model and everything, the texture's done and it shows up.
Yeah.
So that's and it's even better if it works first time, which is rare.
And you manage to get it in game and it works and it doesn't flip your tractor up into orbit or anything, and it's just all perfect.
Yeah, it can be somewhat devastating if it's a long day, and then you get a load of Lua script errors when you click buy it now. I remember switching the baler on when I got it connected to the tractor, and it actually flew up into the air because I had a static collision on the plunger. It literally flew up into space, and I couldn't. The model was gone. I don't know. I had to reset it. It just flew off the face of the map.
It's probably still flying somewhere now.
Yeah, I remember just laughing at that. I wish I had a video of it. It was the first time, and I couldn't understand why. And then I went back and checked because I thought I had some error in, say, the animation, or I was more afraid that something was fundamentally wrong that I might not be able to correct, and all the time was wasted. But I went back and checked through G, and there was a static collision, so that was a lot of fun. Just one other thing on the modeling, or sorry, I should say on the modding side. Probably the most enjoyable thing, if I think about it, is, and it's funny because when you say it and think about it, it's watching other people actually using it is tremendously enjoying.
Oh, I bet. Yeah,
that's really, it's really rewarding, especially if you see people posting pictures and enjoying the mod, and YouTubers enjoying it. I've had some really nice comments from loads of YouTubers, and it really makes your day sometimes. You know, if you're having a bad day and then you see people, you know, really enjoying a mod, it makes a humongous difference.
Yeah, and what I can imagine is fantastic is, you know, when you're posting like work in progress pictures up, and then people start to look at it, and like, there's a bit of hype and excitement around that. And then when you know, if it goes up onto the mod hub or you release it on your Facebook page, being able to watch the stats of like the downloads click up, and more people are downloading this, and there's, you know, that excitement. And then, like you say, when the YouTubers, when we grab hold of it and then we use it in the stream and people are commenting like, oh, I love this mod, I love using this is a great baler or whatever, it must be really nice to see that people are like, all of that hard work and all of that effort is rewarded.
Yeah, I seen I know I watch most of the YouTube streams as much as I can, because I don't get to play the game as much when I'm modding.
No,
because all the time is spent there. But I seen the other day someone was using like the Keenan feeder wagon, and had some really nice comments saying, I hope it's in FS19. I remember I was like, it was really nice to hear that, because it is, you know, it's an early mod I did. I would say now, looking back at it, I could do it better, but it's still very popular, and like watching your own streams, I've watched so many of them, and it's really rewarding to see the comments, you know. And I think you mentioned you might be using the D1000, and I seen it today, if I recall.
Yeah, we were actually just in that field over the hedge line there this morning, and
yep.
And you know what, that brings me on quite nicely to the next question. So in FS17 today, you know, we've seen you create so many different types of machines, and I've touched on it in the introduction. You know, you've created so many different machines from various different aspects within farming, from, be it, you know, front loader attachments to livestock equipment, livestock trailers, feeders, through to a lot of grassland equipment, and then basic grain trailers, silage trailers. And I always think it's like a testament to a modder's work that when when I was doing a bit of research for this, I typed into the mod hub on farmingsimulator.com. I just typed in CD Modelz, pressed enter. So excluding your latest work of this come out on your Facebook page, typed in CD Modelz, and there's like, looking through all of these mods on the screens, like, I've used that one, I've got that one currently, I've used this one, that one's in, like, the Keenan feeder is in all of my role plays as my main feeder. And it's very easy to go through and, you know, kind of find out, oh my god, I use so many of these, and without kind of, it's almost like a subconscious process these days. But I guess, like, it's being being Irish, I suppose this might be a bit of a general stereotype, but there's a lot of emphasis and a lot of people have a preference towards grassland and to silage work. And is that kind of where your main area of interest would lie, or is there anything to stop you from, finding a picture of I don't know, like some special Vedestad drill and creating that, or would you typically focus on the areas of your expertise as it stands at the moment?
No, I think some of the reason, I guess, at the start when I did the first mods was that they were common around Ireland, obviously, and it was stuff that wasn't in the game. So at the start, I would say, yeah, it was really based on like what Irish agriculture is. For me, and now I'd say it wouldn't limit me to, the mods I would do. So like the baler was definitely a new venture from some of the original mods I've done. I've done a lot of trailers, and the reason for that, I mean, realistically, there's a lot of Irish trailer brands. So
yeah.
I know we're using the Larrington, which is a UK, and it's not as well known a brand, but a lot of the trailer manufacturers would see Larrington as, I think, a benchmark in quality. Yeah, but from me, like Brohan trailers, which is my first mod, they're about, I'd say, 7 miles from where I live. Dooley trailers are about the same. High Spec Engineering is actually about 6 miles from where I live.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and then you've got obviously McHale or in the west of Ireland. I know I actually lived in the west of Ireland for a number of years. Then you've got Smith trailers. Smith are again around the same region as Dooley. They're in the same area, so they're only miles from my own home location.
Okay.
So that's I guess it was a lot of machines that were built in Ireland, and Abbey as well, another famous Irish brand. Slurry tankers and slurry type machinery, and that's pretty common as well to see that kind of machinery around where I'm from. Keenan is literally 8 miles from where I live, and I went to see the factory last year. I got the guys were really impressed with the mod, and they sent me an email and asked me to come for a factory tour.
Oh, wow. That's fantastic.
Yeah, that was I have to say that was really, really nice. And I think one of the guys from Keenan was he was playing Farming Simulator, and the marketing manager contacted me, and I got a factory tour literally last Christmas.
Wow, that's awesome.
I definitely really nice guys to work for. I got a factory tour of High Spec Engineering where they make the slurry tankers there as well. So yeah,
what I love about that is the fact that you've got this massive, relatively massive agricultural engineering company, and yet there's still someone inside there who plays FS and found you and found the mod and was like, hey guys, someone's made something that looks like a spitting image of what we make. This is fantastic. And I like how the community works in that way. I think it's great. Yeah,
I think I remember getting emails. The guys would ask me to go to Keenan's, and when I went there, I could see like there was a Mech Fiber 365 and a Mech Fiber 400, and I was like, I really want to make these now for Farming Simulator, and they were very, very nice and saying like, well, whatever information and you can come and measure the machine, and whatever pictures you need, we can help you out. And that was super. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, that's awesome news. And I'm actually quite blown away by that. I think I love it when people reach out and do things like that. I think it's awesome. So obviously FS17 saw like the real announcement and the full arrival of consoles to the platform. Yes, it was there for 15, but 17 came, it landed, and there was mods available. We had the mod hub for consoles, which was just huge, really. It opens up a whole new world for console playing. They had more maps, they had the ability to move different maps, which was just like really, really fantastic and great to see for consoles. From a modern perspective, did that change your approach to modern? Obviously, you mentioned that you'd only just really began your ideas of modern in 15, but did you find the transition into 17 with consoles another difficult factor to approach, or was it something that you kind of just took within your stride?
It was different for me. I don't think it was a massive challenge for me because I came in at that transition point, so what I would say when I did my first mods, the first 2 or 3 giants, obviously you go through the testing, you get rejected, you fix, and you go through that loop. But I remember at the time the guys were like, well, why don't you make this compatible for consoles? And I was like, well, I have no idea what that means to me. I had no clue, because I was really only getting started. And you know, it's a different perspective for Giants. They want everything at like a real quality, which you can understand. And they really wanted, you could see that they really wanted to support the console community. And I can understand that, because I assume it generates a lot of revenue for Giants. And I didn't really understand the limitations at the time. The guys, like, they posted in the when they created the online mod hub, they posted like rules and regulations for modders, guidelines. And that really was like learning those guidelines, how they actually are implemented into a mod, was the challenge. So there was definitely some frustration, I'd say, because, you know, sometimes you would get so far and they would reject it for you know, they would want to have it on a console, and they would reject it, say, to fix stuff, because they were pushing you to get it onto console. And you would get frustrated that, well, why don't you just release it on PC, because it really doesn't make that much difference for me. But then when I understood it later on, I was like, oh wow, yeah, I understand now why these guys want to support console players, because it's really what's going to build the game going forward, having that revenue, that you can pay more people to work in development and make the game better. So yeah, it's been an interesting transition. There was definitely a period of time of, wow, this is a lot more difficult. You have to be more conscious of certain things. Scripts are not really allowed. I'm pretty sure Giants are not directly responsible for that. A lot of it is driven by likes of PlayStation or Sony and Microsoft. But yeah, no, I've always tried to support having the mods on console where possible, for sure. But the start was definitely challenging.
I think it's testament to all of the modders out there who have put the models and efforts onto, or made them console available, because then, as a former console player myself, when the modern platform was first available to console players, there was very few mods available, and it took a while for modders to start to learn to or make mods of a high enough standard that were acceptable. And then of course you have you know, issues with what licenses are or are not available on a console, and what mods are therefore able to come on. But it's testament now when you look at just the extensive library that's available there, and how they can use them all. I think it's fantastic, and without doubt that's really encouraged and increased the population of the franchise on consoles, and we'll continue to see it expand, I think.
Yeah, and I think, you know, it really was a challenge for me. I'll be honest with you, I still don't know a huge amount of like Lua scripting. So that's it's an area I haven't really gotten to touch on yet. I've only started, say, with the D1000. I got into some scripting and modifying some scripts, some Lua scripts. But the folks in the mod hub tester team were very helpful to get the mod essentially compatible for console. What would happen, I guess, when I started modding is you would get a certification report on your mod, and it would say that there's a material hash fail, and I think that's a test they do for console compatibility. And I think I could be wrong, but I think the actual tool that they were using was developed by or with let's say a PlayStation to verify that the mod works on their platform.
Right. Okay.
But you would essentially get a certification report saying that this material hash fail, and you would really have no idea what it meant or what do I have to fix here. It took a long time to figure that out, and but the guys were very helpful, and they really wanted you to get the mod console compatible. So once you get around that, you know, initial frustration with making something compatible for console, and you see the benefits, then it really makes it is a really good idea to support releases onto console. It's because it really is that's what's going to develop the game. I think it's getting more and more users. It's a huge user community. I personally don't play it on console, but I do have a version of it that I bought because I wanted to try out some of my own mods to see how bad they were with a controller, because I never seen that aspect, and you have a different perspective once you play. So I remember downloading the West Coast on console and using it with the controller, having spent years using the PC, and it gave me a different perspective on the Untitled Chapter.
Oh, absolutely. I'm sure. And I think it's what's great to see as well that the with the arrival of the announcement of John Deere for FS19, I think it's fantastic that console users will finally get that next big brand that they've been desperate for so long. I think it's gonna be great to see that and just see the reaction of it whenever we do get to see. I think it's late November now. It's been scheduled to arrive, so that's gonna be fantastic.
Yeah, I really I think the community really has been looking for John Deere for quite a while, and I was really surprised actually that they managed to do that. I think it was a fantastic achievement because John Deere's such a big company, you know. And it's I mean, you look at Farming Simulator, there's a big user community, but the game is still developing, you know. So it's definitely getting a huge amount of traction now. When you see the likes of John Deere coming in, it's a game changer to have a brand of that size, and it makes it a bit of competition, I think, as well, maybe with other brands that might then say, oh wow, we need to get into this, and really, you know, maybe go to Giants and say, can we get, you know, into the game. And it's really super marketing as well for companies. So yeah. I'd love to see the day when the likes of Mikhail would make it in, and Keenan as well. I'd love to see Keenan get in there. Like, Keenan is a pretty big company, but that would be amazing, you know. And I when I did the Keenan wagon, I really was pushing the guys to you should really push with Giants maybe to try and get in there.
I think, could you imagine? That'd be amazing if, like, a small time, what was originally a small time Irish manufacturer lands in FS alongside John Deere. I think that'd be quite something to see.
Yeah, I think you could imagine like how responsive the Irish community, and I'd say the UK community would be to.
Oh, definitely.
Maybe a Mikhail fusion as well, right?
Oh yeah, 100%, without a doubt.
Especially, it'd be amazing to see that. But I don't know, I don't know what Giants look for in you know, a brand to get them in there. But maybe someday we'll see it.
Yeah, you never know. You never know. Now, just quickly before we end for the next break here, I saw as recently as yesterday, I think, on your Facebook page that we have you're currently working on another project, which I believe, if I'm correct in thinking, is that a redo of a Brawn trailer? Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, I really wanted to get to remake that trailer. I originally didn't in-game it, and I wanted to really bring it up to a new standard as well. But when I say a remake, I looked at it, and originally I was going to retexture it, but when I looked at the model, it was just not really up to the standard I'm trying to get now, and I think the user community expects a much higher standard these days, and that's really the reason I'm redoing it. I'm pretty much redoing it from scratch. So like the model will be done from scratch, the texturing will be scratch.
Okay.
I'll do the proper specular maps, and the in-game will be done from scratch, and I'm trying to get to hopefully a single G file with all the shop configurations. So yeah, I just started that about a week ago, so hopefully the 3D model should be pretty quick to do. I'm so familiar with it from doing the first one that it should be relatively straightforward to model. The texturing will take a bit more time though, for sure.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. Well, I look forward to more updates on that, and I encourage anyone who hasn't done to keep an eye on your Facebook page, of which we'll put some links down below before this goes live, and yeah, keep an eye on what's going on with that. But for now though, as you go in empty, we will go for our next break here, so join us back here for part 3 in just a moment. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to part 3. We are back here with myself, Simulation for the Nation, and CD Modelz. We are raring to go. We might get another finisher's headland before we fill this trailer. I forgot to tell you, we've got the best yield possible here on the West Coast at the moment, CD, so as the trailer boy, you're doing a lot of work.
I noticed that the trailer was filling up quite quick.
Oh yeah, you know, I've got to keep you busy here. Got to make you earn it.
You must have the Abbey tanker busy getting the slurry down.
always got to prepare. What I'd be curious to know of, we are obviously kind of in the last kind of the back stretch of FS17 now. Do you have any other projects in the pipeline? Any other ideas that you want to finish before 19 rolls around, or do you think you might take a little bit of a break before 19 arrives?
Yeah, I think what I wanted originally, I wanted to create a 4x4 square baler, like a big Heston baler. But I did start it. The model is actually started for that, and it's one of my favorite farming machines. But I'm not sure if I'm going to wait until FS19 for that one, because if Giants bring a standard 4x4 big Heston square baler into the game, it wouldn't be worth the effort. So that one I'm thinking about it. I'm not sure. So that's TBD right now. I'm definitely going to be revising a lot of the original models I've done for the game to, like the Brawn trailer, to bring them up to the FS 17 standard and to the latest standard I'm trying to achieve, with the view then that the conversion to 19 should be more straightforward. You know, if I wait, I'll have to retexture everything. I'm pretty sure there's new specular maps that you need to have, or additional specular maps you need to have, so it'd be nice to have a good texture base for that. I'm planning to do a small square bale collector, essentially like a flat eight sledge as well.
Nice.
I've been doing some research on a Cook one at the weekend, and I've also started a number of weeks ago. I started it actually just after I finished the D1000, a small New Holland square baler.
Awesome.
So that and a Cooked flat eight sledge, or a Ritchie, are something I'm hoping to do before the end of 17. It looks like there's quite a bit of time. I mean, I think the release is somewhere around the end of November. So there's quite a bit of time left to make some new mods, and maybe get as many updated as possible. You know, that'd be so that I'm not sure what the conversion is going to be like to 19. You know, from 15 to 17, I remember it was a lot of the stuff, and the lighting and stuff changed, and the specular map and the rough cube. Some of the reflective stuff changed in the XML. You know, there's a few changes there. I expect there will be more learning from 17 to 19 because of all the new features they look to have added. So it's I'm still out on the 4x4 square baler. I mean, the one I want to do is an older style one, but I don't want to just create. I don't want to create it and then just spend the time converting it, you know, and creating custom bales and stuff. If the guys then bring in like a standard 4x4 square baler, so that you can basically take the code and reuse it at that point. I definitely would like to do it either way, but
what I would love to see is, I think like conventional bale equipment has been long required, long sought after. So like you say, a flat 8 bale sledge, like a flat 8 bale grab as well, so you could actually lift them up properly after that. Just simple things like that, which we have the conventional balers, we've just never had the ability to handle them. So it's always been a big turn off for many people. But to have that in the game would be fantastic.
Yeah, I think the smaller equipment is something that we could do with more of in the game, and I can see why Giants build the models that they do and make the models, because they're looking at the modern machines. That's what the manufacturers want in there.
Yeah, of course.
You know, so that's why they drive it, and I think the modders have to create a lot of the smaller machines. But yeah, the small bale handling equipment, small balers. Really would love to do like a New Holland 654 round baler, which is a big round baler.
Yeah.
I bought the service manual for it. I was looking at it. It doesn't look like there's a huge amount of difficulty modeling it. The only challenge is the belts. So the belts are funny in Farming Simulator, how they work. You really, if you don't know how to model the likes of dynamic hoses with bones and stuff like that, the belts and stuff can be a bit tricky. I've only looked into them slightly. It might be possible to reuse the belts from the in-game Giants baler, but that and a McHale round baler. Everybody wants a McHale round baler.
Everyone wants to see McHale. You're not wrong.
I went to measure one. I have the measurement. I haven't started the model of it, but yeah, everybody wants a McHale round baler. So that one is definitely on the radar. But there's so much stuff I'd love to do, and so little time.
Yeah.
you get such a short run. I know it sounds like a lot, but you get a short run of every version of the game to do a certain amount, because you have to do a certain amount of learning at the start to get up to the speed with the changes, and that takes time. It consumes a lot of time at the start before you can really before you can get into doing an actual ground up mod. So you know, so a couple of weeks and maybe months could be spent just conversion activity and learning. But I'm thinking about the next mod contest as well.
Oh, nice.
Something. Yeah, I'd like to. I want to maybe do something totally different that I've never done before. I'm thinking self-propelled silage harvester.
Oh, so wow. Any particular brand?
I'm thinking a New Holland 1905 or 2205 or a New Holland FX58. They're the
I had in as I asked that question, that I had in mind a New Holland FX58. I don't know why. We used to, well, I say we, and Navy used to have one and used to do lift our silage with one of those way back when. So that'd be awesome to see one of those come in.
Yeah, I'm going back to Ireland in this Friday actually for some holidays, and I'm hoping to try and find an FX58 and get some pictures and dimensions, at least to start looking at it. So I mean, it's going to need a lot of research. I'll definitely need a real machine to get real dimensions and understand how the header's attached and lifts and lowers, because a lot of that stuff is very hard to tell from pictures. But yeah, the FX is definitely something I would love to do. It'd be something for me. I like to do stuff that's, you know, challenging, but also I now want to do something that's totally different and something that's drivable. Is definitely on the radar.
Sure, oh, that'd be awesome to see. Sad story, the New Holland forager that my neighbour had that came to lift our silage actually ended up in a burnt out wreck in a field.
Yeah,
that didn't go too well, but never mind, these things happen.
So absolutely, yeah.
What I would, and maybe who knows, one day that might be a feature of FS where you can have machinery fires if you don't look after things. Who knows? Could come around. One thing I always like to find out, and I always like to try and ask whoever my guest is at the time, is based on the field they work in. If anyone's out there who is, you know, starting out fresh today, has maybe seen your work and the work of other modders out there, mod creators, and they're looking to start, what would be your kind of words of advice and encouragement, and how would you advise someone to start out who didn't have a single clue? What would your kind of key piece of advice be?
I would say if you have no experience at all, the key elements you need to learn are modeling, 3D modeling, texturing. You need to learn in gaming ultimately, and you know, you can get away without Lua scripting, but it's definitely, if you can do scripting to a high level, it's a massive difference. But for somebody starting out right now, brand new, learn to 3D model and start with the basics. Start with a cube, and this would be my advice. Other people might say different, but I would start with a basic cube and try and make a crate and texture a crate and bring it into game and place it in a game. And that's the starting point for me. From, you know, I had experience with 3D modeling, but even at that, it was a big difference modeling for Farming Simulator. Blender is what most people, I'd say, use as a free resource. I don't use Blender for 3D modeling. I use a different package called NX, but I do some texturing in Blender. But recently I've moved away from that. So, you know, as you get more advanced, you can move on to more complex packages. But get a cube, figure out how to unwrap or UV map the cube properly. And there's really good tutorials on how to do that. They come across really frustrating, because what you find, and what I found, is that it felt like there wasn't enough information out there to get started on the say the Giants forum, and the Giants tutorials come across as not being super detailed. But what they do, when you ultimately realize it, they give you the grounding factors, like the UV
the
fundamentals. Get a cube, model a cube, unwrap it, texture it, and then make, you know, ultimately I wouldn't worry initially about the specular maps. I would just worry about how do I model this thing, and then go from that to a really basic trailer is something that's not that difficult to do in terms of a model. I mean, I would make a cube, shell it out, and make another cube, and make the cube hollow to make a chassis. You know, then put essentially four more rectangular cube. I'm calling them cubes, but that's how they're referenced in say Blender. But rectangles, right? Make a load of rectangles together and form a basic trailer, and then texture it with some ambient occlusion textures, like some diffuse maps. You know, you have to learn that stuff. But the modeling element, start basic, like super basic, and start the texturing super basic as well. You know, on basic shapes. That's a very key thing. I can't emphasize that enough, because if you start on something that's very complex, you'll get really frustrated very quickly, and you'll probably stop. You know, it'll become too frustrating. The other thing you need is time. You have to give it a lot of time. I don't know how many hours I've put into modding in the last 2 years, but it's significant, and you need to also be aware, if you're going to get into it, playing the game becomes difficult. So you'll spend a lot of time modeling, and you need to dedicate a lot of time to modeling. So I don't play the game that much now, I would say, in comparison to how much time I spend modeling, and it's definitely coming across my driving right now.
I was going to say there's a gatepost there.
I know, yeah. I think I've hit the gatepost like 50 times now, so I don't play the game enough.
So I guess there's a real sacrifice there if you are a big player of the game still. It's like, are you willing and able to sacrifice a key portion of that time to getting frustrated in Blender or GE and you know, switching over from one side of the fence to the other, really?
Yeah, and you will definitely become frustrated, and with that you have to just work through it. And you know, there's a lot of good community members. One thing I'd suggest as well strongly, if you can team up, not team up maybe is not the right word, but if you can get in touch with a modder that's established. So when I started, you know, I was really lucky that, you know, our ARM team really helped me out. I have to say, I can't thank him enough. He in-game my first 3D model. He also did some of the texturing work on it, and it was, when you see the first mod go in game, and that was really, you know, looking back at it now, it doesn't look anything like the quality of, say, this Larrington, but it's a stepping stone to progress. And you know, when you see a mod turn up in game, you like, it gives you that little push you need to keep going.
Yeah,
but if you look at the likes of Peter J or Matt XGS, like the time they must spend, and I'd say the time Matt spent on the DLC must have been significant, you know, and he's not playing the game in that time, he's doing the mod. Yeah. So you just, it's a little sacrifice. I sometimes I'm like, should I be doing less modding, and should I be playing the game more and enjoying it? You know, I create a mod, I release it, and I don't get that much time for me to really enjoy it before I go on, because I usually go straight on to the next thing, unless there's bug fixing or whatever. And sometimes with bugs, you get bugs and people bring them up, and usually I wait for a little bit of time for the bugs to come up. You know, no matter how good the testers are, there's always something you didn't see. And sometimes on consoles as well, you get funny bugs that come up on consoles. But the other piece I would say for a new modder, which is also try ultimately to get onto Giants Mod Hub. It's a great platform to get established as a known modder, and also, you know, other modders then see you releasing stuff. But the testing process can be frustrating at the start. It definitely was for me. I won't make any secret of that. And I think there was definitely a point where I was like, oh, I'm done with this. It's so much stress for, you know, getting blocked at the end. But then, you know, I actually met the Giants team in Erlangen, and they're so nice as a group of people that, you know, when I met them, I was like, wow, these guys are actually, you can see their perspective. You know, they want and have standards that they're trying to achieve, and they're a really nice group of guys, and they really do want to support modders and make sure mods are getting out there. So definitely try to get onto the Mod Hub if you create something. Partnering up with an established modder to allow you to get there is way more helpful than doing it alone.
Oh, awesome. Excellent news. And then I suppose, well, like, if you do work to get it onto the Mod Hub, the guys there will support you and kind of give you that little bit of steering or guidance to, you know, fix the errors you may have put in there, or if, you know, particularly if they know that this is your first ever creation and they want to kind of, you know, encourage you further rather than just like shun you and tell you no, it's not going on.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to make any lies about it. We had some falling outs over some mods for sure on back and forward with failures, and it was really just because from my perspective I didn't understand what the failures were, and I got so frustrated that you would get a certification report, as I said before, not understand it, and then they would try to explain it to you and you just wouldn't understand, maybe, you know, what does it mean and what am I trying to fix here. And it became very frustrating, but you work through that, and eventually, yeah, the guys really are trying to help you. And you know, people will know that I definitely have had some falling out with the guys, but the groups they have are very, very good, and when they see you putting the effort in, you know, I remember some of the guys gave me their Skype, you know, and said, look, you can send us a message or whatever on Skype. And that was like, you know, this is a company that's a developer of a game, and you know, somebody from the user community can literally go on Skype if you're lucky enough. You know, I was spending a lot of time modding, and I remember when I went there, I was on a trip to Germany, and I arranged with the guys that I'd love to see the setup, and they gave me so much of their time on a Friday afternoon, and I remember, like, I even got to see some of the stuff they were testing, and you know, really nice group of people.
Lovely. That's excellent to hear.
I remember they were, at the time they were testing, or they had a setup there for like the Fent Ideal Combine that I got to see, and it was I got to play with it as well when I was there, and I was like, this is like, how many companies, if you went to the likes of Electronic Arts, would you get to do this? I don't think so.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's great to hear. It's a testament as well, because you are not the first person to say that about the guys over there, that, you know, they're really nice people, really friendly. So it's great to hear that it's a common consistency. I think that's fantastic news. Now keeping on the same theme, speaking of giants, obviously we now know a lot more about FS19 than we did a few months ago. FS19 it's kind of on the horizon. We're getting close to it. What are your thoughts on what we know so far? But also, I'm very interested to know, what are your thoughts on its competitors? So Catling Crops, for example, where do you see that kind of platform going? But more importantly, what do you like the most about what you've seen of FS19 so far, and what would you like to see arrive?
FS19 is really interesting. I actually was surprised at the amount of changes. You know, it's a lot of small stuff. There's definitely some big stuff, obviously, like the John Deere have come on board, which is huge for the game. But the amount of gameplay elements they've done, from my perspective, is it's pretty amazing. And the amount of time they had, like the placeable nav meshes and the multiplayer element of the game. You know, my vision for Farming Simulator was, you know, I'd love to see if you had a map of Ireland, or just for me, I'm from Ireland, right? Just taking it as an example. And you had a load of players playing on different areas of the country, and it was one big map that you could drive from start to finish on, all right? Like Euro Truck Simulator.
Yeah.
And everybody had their own farm. And it looks like it's getting that way now with the multiplayer, that you can have a big map with loads of people with their own individual farms and their own fields. And that's something that I wanted for a long, long time. I guess the downside is that there's definitely further improvements for multiplayer, for say administration and stuff like that. But it's huge. It's a huge step for me in the right direction on what the game can become. And the placement nav meshes, I'd love to see, and it's a really good starting point that you can move, you know, put essentially your animals where you want to have them. And you know, I look forward to the day when you'll be able to bring your animal trailer up and move them to a different field. And technically you could do that if you can sell, and I don't know whether this is possible, but if you can sell them the nav mesh or the placeable cattle field and move it somewhere else, technically you could probably do that now. Sure, to a level. So that's a huge thing. And there's so many FS19 changes that it's going to be really interesting. I've seen the one as well. It looks like they're working on the stopping the rain coming through the buildings. That's another one I've wanted for so long, because it's just it's annoying me, you know, playing the game, and like your bales are in the shed and they're getting rain all the time. So I really, I hope they get that across the line. I'm sure that's been a painful one for Giants to get figured out.
Absolutely, and what I really love about it is that take away John Deere, like take the brand aspect away from it. So if we came into FS19 with the exact same equipment, I would still love all of the gameplay features. The lighting changes, I think, are fantastic. The small issues or like changes to bringing in dynamic hoses, but not also dynamic hoses, but linking like a drill on the back of a machine and the seed hopper on the front of the machine. They're now going to have a pipe connecting the two of them, which was something that always drove me crazy. That it's like, well, how is the seed getting from the front hopper to the back? Like things like that was just like the small little changes always drove me crazy. The announcement today that Gearbox mod is going to be in there in some capacity is going to be wonderful to see. I'm very intrigued to see how that works and how that pans out. But like, and it's, you can see their focus is on keep either one or two things: either keeping Farm Sim as an arcade for those players who like to play the arcade version, or in contrast to that, making it as realistic and as immersive as possible. And I think those two things are going to be fantastic to see. So you as the player have the option to kind of scale how intensely or how lightly you play the game, and I think that's going to be really fascinating to see. And I can't wait to see how they actually bring that in. But yeah, there's so many small little tweaks that the more you read into it, the more you learn about, the more personally, the more I'm excited I am about it.
Yeah, it definitely. I'm hugely excited. I think, I'm not sure what I guess Giants, if their preference is to go with simulator, full simulator, or I think they're trying to keep the balance, which is really good, because some players, personally, I like to play as realistic as possible on my own, say, save games. Yeah. And I absolutely love the Gearbox add-on, and that's something. I seen that today, and I was like, wow, that's if you're using like a shifter, a Logitech shifter, I use a Fanatec shifter, and I love the Gearbox mod. Especially with older tractors, it's not as applicable maybe to newer tractors, but with like CVT, but still, I think that's just all of those little gameplay elements are a huge thing, and there's so many changes for FS19. I mean, the graphics look pretty spectacular in comparison to they look game changing. I know, say in Euro Truck, like, it has really nice graphics, and it looks like it might be outdoing the likes of Euro Truck now, and I'm really happy to see that the changes that the graphics have undergone. But also one of the things I'm looking forward to as well is embedding some of what is DLC now in the space game. So say like the Baylor Rapper stuff on like the Coon DLC, I'm hoping that stuff gets migrated to base game stuff. And also, like you mentioned, the dynamic hoses. Look, I was looking at some of the screenshots that came from Pharmacon, because originally I was worried that, wow, will we all have to go and model dynamic hoses now? Because to do that, like the way, say, BM Modding did it, they had a really nice tutorial on it, but you really have to do it in the likes of Autodesk Maya and create the bone structure to make them work. And it's not something I've ever done, but I was worried that might be something that might be beyond reach, say, for the modder. But it looks like you will just have to put a transform group, and the hoses will appear, and they may have a different selection of hoses. Like when FS17 came out, now you could choose so many wheels. Like, Giants do a far superior job than I ever could modeling wheels and tires, and the textures are really perfect on how the rubber looks and how they look when they're dirty and stuff like that. I'm expecting from the pictures I've seen that the hoses will be implemented in a similar way, but that's obviously to be confirmed. I'm hoping that's what they do. But there's so many gameplay features that it's going to be really I think a massive difference from FS17. I'm really looking forward to it.
Excellent,
I'm hoping modding won't be too complex, but that's a challenge. I think it's going to be, but we'll see.
With any luck, we'll find out a little bit more over the coming week or month or so, and then we'll you might be able to sleep a little easier at night.
I'm looking forward to the sample mod. It's you only get a certain snippet of information, I guess, because I do a lot of implements. The sample mod is usually the original, like the original Bueller tractor.
Okay.
And it gives you. They try to give you one of everything. It's going to be interesting for sure, but there's so many changes, and I've only seen a few. I know I was watching a lot of the pictures and streams and stuff where people are talking about the FarmCon. So I haven't obviously heard everything. I wasn't at the FarmCon, but yeah, it should be an amazing game, you know, and it's definitely long coming, I think, as well. You know, you could see how it's developed. A lot of people have a lot higher demands now on what they want and expect from Farming Simulator. So, and I'm definitely one of those people. You know, there's certain things, you know, that probably won't be an FS19 that I would like, but definitely they're going in the right direction for sure.
Oh, excellent news. Awesome stuff. Well, all we have left to do now, CD, are you about full there?
Yep.
Yes, you are. Away you go then. We have got a couple of quick fire questions, and as we do these, we're just going to leave the silage here for now. Just about done. So first of all, first quick fire question. What's the favorite mod one of your favorite mods, the mod that you've created or had a part in creating? Which one stands out to you the most?
I really like the Keenan feeder is one of them, because it's been so. I'd be honest with you, I probably have two for myself. Two mods that are probably most popular: the Keenan mod and the McHale bale wrapper is also something I really like because it's very, very popular. I see a lot of people using it.
Okay.
So they're probably two of the favorite mods I've done, and the Keenan is just, it's an iconic Irish brand, and so is the McHale. But on the McHale, I remember the animations. I think I lost some hair when I did the animations for the bale wrapping. I really, really lost some hair on that one. So that was a huge. It was a challenge, I would say. At least the Keenan has become a very popular mod with the community. I mean, it's my go-to mod if I want a feeder wagon on a map like the West Coast. It's different from maybe American maps. Now, the Keenan do sell in America, but you would need something like the Keenan, the Mech Fiber 400, so something really big.
Yeah.
It's my go-to mod, and it sounds like from what I see that it's a go-to mod for a lot of other people for a feeder wagon.
Absolutely, it's the first one I look to get in there for sure.
The D1000 I can't overlook, right? It's I'd say it's relatively new, so it's TBD on how people perceive it and receive it, but it's another mod that's been, I think, for FS17 it's probably my most challenging one I've done to date. But it's the Keenan and the McHale are my favorites from my own lineup.
Oh, awesome. And then the same question again, but for somebody else's creation. What's your favorite mod for? Let's just keep it to FS17. What would be your favorite mod created by another modder?
I think Seasons is Seasons has to be in there without question. It's, you know, that's a game changer for single, you know, users, and it's amazing. But one of the things I really like as well is the UAL script, the auto load script.
Oh yeah, definitely.
That's probably my favorite mod for 17, because using balers as a single player mode is challenging, you know, and the bale physics are a little bit funky, so it makes usability, because one of my favorite things to do in Farming Simulator is baling, particularly square baling, but which is a challenge when you're a single user, if you're not on multiplayer. But even if you're on multiplayer, the bale physics can be a bit funky, and the UAL script kind of gets rid of all that. So, you know, I haven't gotten around to it. I'll definitely put the UAL script on probably the dually single axle trailer or maybe the Smith 3-axle trailer, or both for this baler, because I pretty much have it done. I just haven't gotten around to testing it yet and to checking to make sure it works all right. But I have adapted the two of the trailers I've done to the UAL, but that's probably my favorite mod for 17. Yeah,
that'd be cool. Lovely stuff. And then finally, I do always like to kind of emphasize and put a lot of emphasis on the community as a whole. If I was new to FS, today, new to the whole community, and I came up to you and I said, CD, what is this FS community about, and can you point me in the direction of, you know, somebody, be it a modder or a YouTuber or a map maker? Could you point me in the direction of someone that I should go and check out to kind of learn a bit more about this community? Who would you kind of recommend I check out, and how would you kind of describe the community as a whole?
So for someone that's starting out, FS UK, I would recommend for that. They have it's a really close community, and a lot of knowledge goes on the forum on FS UK. So you've got people that were with the game since almost day one in terms of modding, the likes of Peter J, MadXJS hang out there. I hang out there as well. You've got a lot of other guys, I think as well, ARM team have posted on there as well. There's so many, some of the original FS UK mod team. You've got Pretorius. I don't want to miss out names of modders, right, because there's so many, but there's also now the likes of Bullet Bill for mapping, Oxygen David for mapping. You've got Nathan for mapping. You've got Ian, you know, who's working on the Frontier team. You've got the Frontier testing that hang out there. So many people. It's such a huge resource, and it doesn't come across maybe that way if you're a new user, because it's a forum, and first thing you see when you hit the website is pictures, right? Yeah. But when you dig into the forum, you know, if you post something up there, it's 99% chance you're going to get a response of pretty high detail, and the guys really want to help new modders, and they want to bring new modders along. And I've had a lot of help from guys there since I started modding, and when I get stuck, you know, it's a really good place to go when you're really stuck. I tend to try and solve stuff myself when I can, but you know, and I obviously I reach out to the guys that are on that forum in different ways as well, using different like methods of communication. But that's a really good starting point for sure. And it's pretty, you know, there are some other places like the Facebook community is good, but it's a centralized forum for modders, and you know, that's definitely, I couldn't really emphasize it enough, and I couldn't really thank it enough either for, you know, sometimes I don't need to ask something, but I'll just go and do a search on it, and you'll see somebody else already answered the question, and it's like, oh,
there's already been that same question before.
Yeah, the solutions, or most of the solutions the problems I've had are pretty much there already, and I just have to read, you know, and then beyond that, you can contact the guys. In terms of the second question, the user, I'd say it's grown into a very big community now, and it's a pretty good community. I'd say for the most part, it's an excellent community. You know, you'll always get a few people that complain about certain things, and that's just the same with every community, no matter what game you play or what you do. That's just, it's part and parcel of life, right? And you know, you'll always get people that criticize very specific elements, and sometimes, like, as a modder, you have to take criticism. It comes in many forms, and I don't get too fussed about it. I think there was times at the start maybe that, you know, you can take offense very easily to something when you put so many hours in, but you have to see it from the perspective of others. But
and maybe develop some thicker skin somewhere down the line as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's it comes with creating anything. If you create anything, you'll get people that like it, and you'll get people that don't like it, and you'll get people in the middle. So, sure. But taking the criticism in a positive way and making the changes and improvements is what I would recommend to anybody starting out. You know, it's something I've definitely learned since I started.
Yeah, that's excellent. Well, that is fantastic. And with that, I would like to say that we are completely finished. I have no more questions for you, so you can breathe a big sigh of relief. We are done. CD, all that remains for me to ask you really is, where can people find you if they want to look you up and keep an eye on what's going on?
Yeah, you can check the 4D Modding Facebook page. You can get me on FSUK as well. You can get me on Facebook. I think, I'm not sure everybody knows my real name. Brian Bulger is my real name, and I don't make any secret of that. You know, a lot of people have had me as a friend on Facebook and message me. I get too many messages. Unfortunately, I can't answer them all. There's a lot of unread messages there, but I answer as many as I can. So yeah, that's a good. And obviously, you know, I'm on YouTube as well. I'm in a lot of the streams. So yeah, if you're there, if you need any help with a mod or whatever, I've I try to help where I can with mods, and sometimes I've been game stuff for people as well that are get stuck at something, and so yeah, I'm definitely not an expert in modding by standards that other people have, but I'll help where at all possible. Yeah, and thanks very much as well for the invite to do this video. It's been really enjoyable.
It's absolutely my pleasure. Yeah,
I'm looking forward to seeing my bad driving on YouTube.
Oh, you'll be surprised what I can cut out.
I think you'd have to cut the whole video out, but it's a testament to how little I play the game and how much I'm mod, I think.
Well, thank you again. Thank you ever so much for taking the time out. That has been fantastic. I'll put links in the description down below for CD's Facebook pages again, so you can click on those and come and find them. But from me at this stage, Simulation for the Nation, all I can say is thank you ever so much for watching. If you have enjoyed today's A Growing Understanding episode, do hit that like button and subscribe to Simulation for the Nation if you've yet to already. And there will be more from me in a variety of different formats coming out over the coming days and weeks. But until next time, CD, once again, thank you ever so much. And we will catch you all later on. So until then, see you later.